Git is like a time machine for your code. It keeps track of every change you make to your file so you can go back to an earlier version if you break something, see who changed what and when, and work on different ideas without messing up the main version. Git is the go-to standard for source control. Different cloud providers like GitHub and GitLab integrate with Git. You can install Git by going to git-scm.com, and here it'll give you an option to download for your system. If you want a specific kind of download, you can come over here to install and see the different ways you can get it. Let's get started creating a Git repo. So we can do this locally by either creating a folder called Git demo or whatever you want to call it, and then changing the directory into it. Or we can just use the base folder we're already in. But in this case, I'm just going to use this folder we just created. And we're going to type git init. And this will initialize an empty Git repository in this folder. And you can see that it added this .git folder, but we do not see it over here on the right side when we open up this folder. And that is because VS Code automatically hides this folder. To stop this from happening, we can go over here to the settings, go to settings, and here in the search, we could do files.exclude. And we can see right here, this pattern is being excluded from our files. If we go ahead and just remove this, we can now see this .git folder has appeared on the right side with a bunch of folders inside. We won't worry about the files and folders inside this .git repository right now, as we will look at them later. So now that we have our Git repository initialized, we can go ahead and add a new file to it. So first we're going to create a new file, and we'll call it readme.md. This will just be a markdown file that we will use. We're going to make sure it's inside this Git demo folder, so that way it's being tracked by our Git repository. And if you are using VS Code, you will see something like this U next to it, meaning that it's not being tracked by our Git repository. I will go over the VS Code integration with Git here in a little bit. So if we head back over to our console and we type git status, we can see the current status of our repo. We can see any files that have not been tracked or any changes that have been made to our repository. So we can see here there are no commits that have been made yet, and we have an untracked file of the readme.md file. To go ahead and have Git start tracking this file, we can type git add the file name. This adds this one specific file to be tracked by Git. We can do git add dot to add everything inside of this current folder. This is generally not a good idea to do because you might accidentally commit secrets or API keys, and that's not a fun time to try and mess with later. But we will go over that more in another video. So in this case, we just do git add readme.md, and we type git status again. We can now see we have changes to be committed, this new file of readme.md. If we accidentally started tracking this file but we didn't want to, we can provide this command here, git rm -- cached, the file name. But in this case, we do want to add this file. So now we can type git commit -m, and usually you want your commit messages to be descriptive for what the changes are. So in this case, I'm doing added readme.md. Now if we do git status, there are no pending changes to our repository. And we can see it says on branch main. The default timeline or main branch is going to be called main. Sometimes it can be called master. We will talk about branching in another video. Now, if we head over to our readme.md file and go ahead and add something, let's say git demo, we can come back into the console and see git status. We can now see that this file has been modified. If we didn't want to have this modification and we want to restore the file back to how it was in the previous commit, we can do git restore file name. So if we type git restore readme.md, we can see the change we just had up here got erased, since that wasn't in the previous commit. But if we go ahead and add this back, we have git status again, and we can see this file has been modified again. If we want to see what has changed between our last commit and what we're at right now, we can type git diff. This is showing us the difference between the readme file in our last commit and our readme file now. No lines have been removed, but a line has been added of this git demo. And so under the hood, Git actually only stores these kinds of changes, and that's what makes it really fast and lightweight. It doesn't actually store a bunch of copies of your entire code base. It just stores the differences between each commit on top of your code base. So in this case, we can do git status again. And since we have this modification, we can do git add this readme file and then do git commit again, or we can do git commit -a. And this A is short for add all modified files to this commit, and then M for message. And we go ahead and add a message here. And we can say updated readme.md. And now we have another commit. We do git status again. There are no changes pending. If we want to see a history of this Git repo, we can say git log. And this will show you the commit hash, where the head is pointing to. And in this case, our head is pointing to main, the most updated commit in the main branch. You can see stuff like the author, when it happened, and then the commit message. If you want to see a shorter version of it, you can do git log -- one line. And this just shows you a small part of the hash, where the head is pointing to, then the commit message. If we wanted to go back in time to a previous commit, we can type git checkout, and then this commit hash that we see right here. So we want to go back to the first commit because there was something in there that we needed. We can do this, and it gave us a bunch of text. We'll go ahead and clear this console, and we can see I have a custom integration here for my PowerShell. And we can see it says head detached at this commit hash. So our head is no longer pointing to the latest commit. And since we did this, we can see this README file no longer has anything in it. I'm going to close this, open it again, and there's nothing in here. If we want to go back to the most updated code on this main branch, we can do git checkout main. And now we're back to the latest commit where our file has been changed in here. Let's say we modified a file, but we're not ready to commit yet. But we need to check out a different commit, maybe to look at some other code. This is where git stash can come in. You can temporarily save uncommitted changes and give you a clean working directory. So that way you can switch between different branches or different commits without having to worry about your changes somehow messing up. So we can type git stash, and this will take whatever changes we have from the previous commit and go ahead and add it to a stash stack. You can add a name for it by adding -m and then a name. So we can do git stash -m subscribe. If we wanted to include our stash with all the untracked files we haven't started tracking yet, you can provide the flag U. So once you go ahead and add that, we can see it stashed it with the message subscribe. That way we can easily reference it in the future. You don't have to provide this M, you can just do git stash to just go ahead and add it really quick. If we do git stash list, we can see a list of stashes that we have pending. If we want to apply a stash but not remove it from the stack, we can do git stash apply. But if we want to go ahead and apply the stash and remove it from the stash stack, we can do git stash pop. And once we do that, we can see that it now added this change back to our readme.md file. So now that we've gone over these basic commands and we take a look on the right side, VS Code actually has a pretty nice integration with Git. It does tell you which files are modified or untracked, and you can see with the color coding of the files and the folder names. If you come over here to the source control tab by pressing Ctrl-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G on Mac, you will be able to see the list of changes or untracked files. And down here, it does have this graph option where you can see the line of commits, so the Git tree. But here at the changes, you can click this first one to open the file directly. So if we didn't have this open and we clicked here, we can go straight to the file that has the changes. If we wanted to undo the changes or restore the file to the last commit, we can go and discard changes with this arrow. If the file is not being tracked, it will actually go ahead and delete the file if you do this. So be careful with that. Then with this plus, you can go ahead and stage the changes, doing the same thing as a git add file name. So if we go ahead and do this, we can click that and we can see it has become a stage change, waiting for a commit. Then we can come up here and add a commit message. And we can do something like updated readme again and go ahead and commit. If we come back into the console and type git log -- one line, we can see this new commit has been added. And if we go open up this graph down here at the bottom, we can see there are 3 commits here as well. You can also come down to one of these other previous commits and right click and create checkout if you want to move back to that point in time, the same thing that we did earlier. But if you want to head back up to the latest on main, you can come up here, click checkout and main. And that's a basic introduction for what you need to know for Git. Stay tuned for more tutorials on Git. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.